How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. The phone number is 877-973-7425 should you wish to be on the program. What an event yesterday. What an event. I got to go in the Wayback Machine to start this because it's very, very important you understand the presuppositional context of yesterday. A big fancy word there. The presuppositions. The foundational ideas you have going into an event. Many use the phrase Wellstone Memorial before yesterday. In fact, it was the subtext of Henry Olsen's piece in the Washington Post we talked about last week, and I got to set the stage for you here. Back in the day, when I was young in politics, there was a Democratic senator. He was unquestionably the leader of the progressive movement in America at the time. His name was Paul Wellstone. Paul Wellstone was campaigning for re-election, and the plane he was in crashed. All on board died. A week before the 2002 midterm elections, they held a rally. Now, I've got to set the stage for you with this. 2002, you'll remember that election if you know anything about politics. It was the first time in multiple generations that the party that controlled the White House had a good election, and a lot of it had to do with 9/11, but not just 9/11. So, for context here, there was a very famous United States senator who worked with Paul Wellstone. His name was Max Cleland. He had been the Secretary of State in Georgia. He was a Vietnam veteran, wheelchair bound due to injuries he sustained in war. Beloved Saint Max by members of the media, particularly the Georgia press. They loved him. And he went to Washington, D.C., and working with Paul Wellstone, the U.S. government was forming the Department of Homeland Security in the aftermath of 9/11. And Max Cleland and Paul Wellstone worked together to try to put provisions into the legislation forming Homeland Security that would have given the employees massive union rights. And despite the hagiography you will hear to this day about Max Cleland and Paul Wellstone, they were literally willing to hold up the formation of a department that the 9/11 Commission decided was needed to keep the country safe unless they could bake into that organization massive union rights as a fund to the public sector unions. Max Cleland was up for re-election as well. Cleland's opponent was a man I had worked for a number of years in his campaign office as a congressman. Name was Saxby Chambliss. To this day, members of the National Press Corps and some of the Georgia Press Corps will spit out Saxby Chambliss's name in disgust because he had the audacity to campaign against the patron saint of public unions, Max Cleland, and tell Americans honestly and accurately that Max Cleland was essentially doing the bidding of al-Qaeda by blocking the formation of the Department of Homeland Security unless unions got a payoff. And it was true. And the media despised Chambliss for saying that. To this day, I know reporters who hate Saxby Chambliss for daring to point out what Max Cleland and Paul Wellstone were doing. Cleland would go down to defeat by Saxby Chambliss. Wellstone died, and the Democrats were shattered because there was a public backlash to Paul Wellstone and Max Cleland holding up the Department of Homeland Security over public union dues. Didn't land well with the public. The media in the bubble with the Democrats couldn't even see it coming. And a week before the election in 2002, the Democrats all gathered for a memorial service for Paul Wellstone. How did it go? Well, Bill Frist and Trent Lott, the Senate majority or minority leader, and his successor in office, they went to the memorial. They had to escape. Think about this. 2 prominent Republican senators went to the memorial for Paul Wellstone and had to flee for their lives. That's how it went. It became a political rally for the Democrats with Bill Clinton there. And the Democrats, there was no gospel message. There was no gospel presentation. There were very few words about Jesus. It was all about the progressive movement and what Paul Wellstone meant to the progressive movement. And it became a clarion call to turn out the vote. And what should have been a memorial for a dead man turned into a get out the vote session, such that the Republican members had to flee for their lives because the Democrats on stage were calling them out to their faces and attacking them at a memorial.
I am begging you, please, let the people of this state hear your voice on his behalf to keep his legacy alive and help us win this election for Paul Wellstone.
For Paul Wellstone, will you stand up and keep fighting for social and economic justice? Say yes. We will win. 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 Thank you, Mom and Dad and Marcia. We love you. Thank you.
That was the Wellstone rally. Memorial service, funeral. We will win. We will get out the vote. Cheering on the Democratic cause, cheering on socialism. That was a memorial service. Tom Harkin, the senator, gets all the people to stand up for social justice, stand up for unions, stand up for the public sector, stand up for the farmers, stand up against the elite, stand up against the rich, stand up against the Republicans, stand up and fight for Paul Wellstone. That was what happened. And the public, the American public, this was covered live on Fox News and CNN and MSNBC and C-SPAN. There were excerpts in the nightly news, and Al Franken wrote a book about this. Al Franken ultimately became the senator who succeeded Paul Wellstone. Walter Mondale held the seat temporarily. And he wrote a book and he blamed media coverage, not the memorial service. He blamed the media coverage and said they were working, the National Press Corps was working with the Republicans to vilify the Democrats, that it was a loving, touching memorial service for Paul Wellstone. And I just played you a clip. That's how it went. The public was aghast. They took a religious memorial service and turned it into a political rally. The next week, the election came and the backlash came swift, and the exit polling showed the American public had, in fact, reacted viscerally to the Wellstone Memorial Service. And so the Wellstone Memorial Service in politics has kind of become this touchstone movement. Progressives can't help themselves. But everyone else don't do this, don't do this. So we all went into yesterday, those of us in politics, with the Wellstone Memorial in the back of our mind. Please, Lord God, don't let them turn this into a Wellstone Memorial. And what did the public see? One of the greatest multi-hour gospel presentations the world has ever seen. 100,000 people in Phoenix, Arizona, tens of millions of people watching around the world. I want to read you a comment. If you got my Substack this morning, if you got my morning piece, I want to read you a comment. A lapsed Muslim responded to Erica Kirk forgiving her husband's killer and said, "I am ignorant when it comes to Christianity. But if this is what it truly embodies, then I am envious of those who get to experience that feeling." The gospel presentation, a widow standing on stage, forgiving her husband's killer, was remarkable.
My husband, Charlie, he wanted to save young men just like the one who took his life. That young man, on the cross, our Savior said, "Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do." That man, that young man, I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love. Love for our enemies and love for those who persecute us.
Powerful, powerful message from Erica Kirk, but she also pointed out something else. I said on social media that were this a rally of progressives for one of their own, while they were inside the memorial service, the business owners would be boarding up their front windows of their shops, knowing what would be coming afterwards. Because you all know, I mean, look at the memorial service for George Floyd, look at other progressive events, the riots that come after them. Erica Kirk on stage.
After Charlie's assassination, we didn't see violence. We didn't see rioting. We didn't see revolution. Instead, we saw what my husband always prayed he would see in this country. We saw revival.
Yeah, no riots. This was there were some moments where some of the left would say partisanship, and Stephen Miller's speech, the president's. But even most of the media giving the president a pass on this, overwhelmed with Erica Kirk on stage. That was the message, and that was the path forward. Respond to hate with love, not with more hate. Love your enemies, forgive them. Way different from what the Democrats did with Wellstone, what the Democrats did with the George Floyd situation. Just a stunning contrast, and one that spoke to the heart of Americans who are deeply concerned about where we go as a country from here, and probably went to bed last night thinking, well, that was really good. I don't know what I was expecting, but that was really good. They're probably thinking, going to sleep knowing there weren't going to be riots from something like that, unlike a progressive event. And I do think this will have a memorable impact on Americans as they continue to see progressives go violent. We saw this weekend a gun control activist who worked for a teachers union in California opened fire on an ABC station in Northern California because of booting Kimmel. This is where the left is headed, more and more violence as the wife of a man assassinated forgives her husband's killer on stage. So I want to address President Trump's controversial comment last night. He comes on after Erica Kirk has forgiven her husband's assassin, and this is what the president says.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry. I am sorry, Erica. But now Erica can talk to me and the whole group, and maybe they can convince me that that's not right, but I can't stand my opponent. Charlie's angry. Looking down, he's angry at me now. He wasn't interested in demonizing anyone. He was interested in persuading everyone to the ideas and principles he believed were good, right, and true.
People, I can't believe he said, listen, I don't think he should have said it. I think he was trying to bring a moment of levity to a very intense situation there. After Erica Trump, the crowd is crying. He's giving them a laugh line. I don't think it was the right laugh line to give. I don't. But I'll cut him some slack on it, but also, you notice the left that is outraged by it. They hate Donald Trump. They can't even forgive Charlie Kirk in his death. They were on CNN slandering him right before the funeral. You got two paths, Democrats, the Erica Kirk path or the Donald Trump path. You say don't be like Donald Trump, and yet you are exactly like he is, not forgiving. I thought you wanted to be like Erica Kirk. Hillsdale College would love to have you involved with them. Larry Arnn gave, the president of Hillsdale College, gave a just beautiful gospel message at the memorial service yesterday. They're just such great people. You can go to ericforhillsdale.com and find out how you can be a part of Hillsdale College, ericforhillsdale.com. You can take one of 40 different classes from Hillsdale College at no charge to you. There are a series of 30-minute videos with some of the finest faculty at Hillsdale, making you smarter about a subject you're interested in, whether it's capitalism or the economy or chemistry or math or theology or literature or philosophy, history even. There's so much. Great Larry Arnn lecture series on the Constitution of the early American Republic as well. He did such a good job yesterday. Find out more with Hillsdale College. Go to ericforhillsdale.com, ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com. Sign up with Hillsdale College today. There's no cost to you to take one of these, and you'll expand your mind and horizons with Hillsdale College. Hello and welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, although be patient with me on the calls because I want to cover the memorial service this hour and move on to other things in the next if I can get through it all. But I want to play for you again the contrasts because I got a larger point that needs to be made. But to get there, let me play you the shorter version. This is Erica Kirk forgiving her husband's killer.
That young man on the cross, our Savior said, Father, forgive them, for they not know what they do. That man, that young man, I forgive him.
Standing ovation there for Erica Kirk. Now, on the heels of Erica Kirk, Donald Trump came on, and this is the president.
He did not hate his opponents. He wanted the best for them. That's where I disagreed with Charlie. I I hate my opponent, and I don't want the best for them. I'm sorry.
Now, listen, I think he means it, but I also think he wanted a moment of lighthearted humor. I'm not going to eat the president up on there. What I found really, really notable, and the reason I play and contrast those, because I do think it was so notable, is of all places, even MSNBC can't bring themselves to really say much about the president. I think they too understood he was trying to bring a little levity to what was an emotional moment with his statement there. I want you to listen to this. This is the commentary on MSNBC, not exactly friendly to conservatives.
Surprised that in Trumpian style, he overall stuck to the teleprompter. He had notable deviations when it came to pushing his, new announcement on autism, from saying that Charlie Kirk supported tariffs to, deviating about crime around the country. But for him, is that about as disciplined as a Trump that you would see in an address like that?
I think so. And look, Charlie Kirk went to a great number of rallies for Donald Trump. He wanted this man to get back into office. He held Turning Point USA events that essentially were Trump rallies, but in name of Turning Point under their banner. I think what honestly I'll take away from tonight is watching the weight of a woman, a mother, lose her husband. Most people cannot say they've experienced losing a spouse at this young of an age. And I don't know who we are to suggest how somebody should respond in real time. 1 week after her husband's passing, she went in front of a crowd of 40 to 50,000 people watching all over the world. And she delivered remarks in which she forgave the assassin that shot her husband.
I thought it was just remarkable.
A remarkable moment, because in so many ways where America stands in 2025 is how do we respond going forward? And the woman that just lost her husband stood there in front of the world and said, I forgive. And because her Christian faith teaches her to love your enemy and not hate your enemy, and to love those that persecute you. And I think what was stunning about the tension that exists here in 2025 was to listen to Erica Kirk, a big supporter of the president, be followed 15, 20 minutes later by the president of the United States, clearly somebody who she loves, but come out and directly say, I disagree with Charlie Kirk and I disagree with you, Erica, and say, I hate my opponents. And I think that says a lot about where we are and the questions about where we go moving forward. The Erica Kirk route or the Donald Trump route.
Listen, that's MSNBC, where they took it seriously. And they were all overwhelmed with Erica Kirk. They gave very little coverage to President Trump's remarks, which was very notable. There were progressives online calling it a Nazi rally. Yes, that it was akin to having Hitler on stage, saying all sorts of things. That was not the tone set by MSNBC, which I thought was very, very notable, even as they and others, myself included, took some issue with the president going out and saying, I disagree with Charlie on that. I hate my enemies, but I also show him some grace. It was a intense moment, people in tears after Erica Kirk. He's trying to lighten up the crowd. Give him a bit of a pass on that. What you heard across the board on that stage throughout the day, notice how little chatter there is from Democrats, maybe that bit from the president or some from Stephen Miller, but almost every single person on that stage either talked about their personal friendship with Charlie Kirk or the gospel message. This is J.D. Vance.
Charlie suffered a terrible fate, my friends. We all know it. We all saw it. But think, it is not the worst fate. It is better to face a gunman than to live your life afraid to speak the truth. It is better to be persecuted for your faith than to deny the kingship of Christ. It is better to die a young man in this world than to sell your soul for an easy life with no purpose, no risk, no love, and no truth. Christ told us in the Gospel of John, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Charlie took heart, and now we must do the same.
That's J.D. Vance. And now I intentionally play these two back to back. That was him and Marco Rubio, who many see as the alternative to J.D. Vance if something happens in 2028. Also talking about Charlie Kirk and the gospel message.
Kirk was impactful. Impactful because of all the things I've said, but look around this place. There's 100-something thousand people here. The President of the United States is here. His entire cabinet is here. Television outlets and media outlets from all over the world are covering this. I just came from overseas, and every country I stopped, they gave us their condolences for his passing. Impactful. In just 31 years of life, he made a difference. He mattered, and he will matter now more than he ever has before. And let me close with this. How do you remember? This is a memorial service. It's to honor him. How do you best remember it? I'll take the liberty of saying what I think we can best do. Look, I think he had a tremendous impact on young Americans in general. I think he had a very special and direct impact on young men in this country. That's one of the greatest developments I've seen. It's been very positive. I think we remember him for that. I think we remember him for constantly saying, you want to live a productive life, get married, start a family, love your country. These are powerful messages. But I hope many who are watching, I imagine there are people watching here tonight that didn't know much about Charlie Kirk until 11 days ago. Maybe they were disengaged from politics. Maybe they were partially engaged. I hope one of the things they take from this is that the movement Charlie Kirk led and started and gave fuel to was about politics, but not only about politics. It was deeper. It was broader. And I would say that, taking the liberty, but I'm confident he would agree, one of the things he wants us to take away from this, from all of this, is the following. His deep belief that we were all created, every single one of us, before the beginning of time, by the hands of the God of the universe, an all-powerful God, who loved us and created us for the purpose of living with him in eternity. But then sin entered the world and separated us from our Creator. And so God took on the form of a man and came down and lived among us. And he suffered like men. And he died like a man. But on the third day, he rose unlike any mortal man. And then, and to prove any doubters wrong, he ate with his disciples so they could see, and they touched his wounds. He didn't rise as a ghost or as a spirit, but as flesh. And then he rose to the heaven, but he promised he would return, and he will. And when he returns, because he took on that death, because he carried that cross, we were freed from the sin that separated us from him. And when he returns, there will be a new heaven and a new earth, and we will all be together, and we are going to have a great reunion there again with Charlie and all the people we love. Thank you, and God bless you.
That is basic Christianity there from Marco Rubio. That is the basic gospel message. And you heard it over and over on stage last night. And there is a passage of Scripture. Many of you know the story of Joseph in Genesis. Joseph's brothers, they are very jealous of him. And they sell him into slavery in Egypt. And he rises in prominence over time after spending time in prison in Egypt, rises in prominence and becomes the head of Egypt, the right hand of the king, of the Pharaoh. And a drought comes to the promised land. And his father and brothers are forced to flee into Egypt, and he recognizes them, and they don't recognize him. And when he confronts them and reveals his identity, and they're panicked, they're thinking he's going to kill us. Instead, he says in Genesis 50, verse 20, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. In some translations, what you meant for evil, with it God has done good. Almost 2 weeks ago, 11 days ago, Tyler Robinson decided, according in his own words, that Charlie Kirk's hate could not be negotiated with. It is a sentiment found in some of the most rabid quarters of progressivism, that there are people whose views are so hateful they cannot be negotiated with. They can only be eliminated. And it is progressivism, some strains of it that teach this. He was a progressive, is a progressive. He hated Charlie Kirk's views. He hates MAGA and Donald Trump. And he decided that because he hated Charlie Kirk and he needed to stop Charlie Kirk's hateful message, he had to kill Charlie Kirk. And he did. And in the 11 days since, the number of people whose eyes have been opened to a sense of revival has been amazing. And yesterday, millions of people around the world heard a gospel presentation repeated from multiple people, from multiple perspectives, concluding with the wife of the assassinated man quoting Christ on the cross, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." I had a seminary professor, Derek Thomas, my favorite seminary professor. They all know he's my favorite. He said one time in class, if you can't forgive someone, what you are saying is you are more afflicted than Christ on the cross. If you are incapable of forgiving someone who has done something to you, you are more afflicted than the innocent man who had the entire sin of the world piled on top of him, who was tortured, beaten, crown of thorns placed on his head, physically nailed to a cross, crucified, suffocated on that cross, died. And his dying words were, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." Are you more afflicted than Christ on the cross because you can't forgive someone or you didn't get the apology you wanted? Tyler Robinson hasn't issued an apology. Tyler Robinson has not said, "I'm sorry." Neither did the people who crucified Christ say they were sorry, and he still forgave them. And yesterday on that stage, Erica Kirk forgave her husband's assassin. Sana Ibrahimi is a PhD candidate of some note who wrote this on Twitter yesterday. I listened to Erica Kirk's full speech at the memorial, and I want to share a few thoughts. First, I should say I grew up Muslim in a Muslim country. I don't know enough about Christianity to say if what I witness is rooted in faith or culture, but what struck me most was how, even though death is heavy, and this was by nature a sad occasion, the entire event carried a celebratory spirit that honored life. That contrast hit me deeply. In Islam, even though we believe that good people go to heaven, the relationship with God is taught through fear. Funerals are overwhelmingly sad, often filled with warnings of the terrifying first night in the grave. Growing up hearing that and then witnessing people celebrate life, speak of God's love, and remember someone through the impact he had on others, it felt so refreshing, so positive. I was profoundly moved by Erica Kirk's words. I cannot fathom the strength it takes to stand and deliver such a meaningful speech after losing the love of your life. But even more than that, the grace it takes to forgive the very person who destroyed your world. I cannot imagine myself standing on a stage sending love to those who cheered my husband's murder or inviting others to spread God's love in response, because, as she said, we do not respond to hate with hate. That is powerful beyond words. Again, I am ignorant when it comes to Christianity, but if this is what it truly embodies, I am envious of those who get to experience that feeling. I will tell you, though it is hard, it is what it truly embodies. And I would tell Sana Ibrahimi, she can have it too. Welcome back. It is Eric Erickson here across the United States. Phone number 877-973-7425. Do me a favor, please, and text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777. You can get the show notes, the live stream, the podcast. I want to play you one more clip from the president. He made some news. This is kind of odd at a funeral to go into this, but he did.
And tomorrow we're going to have one of the biggest announcements, really medically, I think, in the history of our country. We're going to be doing it with Bobby and Oz and all of the professionals. I think you're going to find it to be amazing. I think we found an answer to autism. How about that? Autism tomorrow.
Now, what we know from the press leaks on this is they're going to suggest a tie to Tylenol. And I'm a little dubious here. And again, I'm no medical expert, but we went through this with the birth of our second child and some concerns because of my wife's health, knowing that rumor was out there even back then. And if you look at studies, there seems to be a very faint link between Tylenol and autism, unless you take studies of people with multiple kids who took Tylenol through all the pregnancies, and then there's no correlation at all. And I'm a little bit skeptical of this, but the president says they got something. We'll see. I've got Swiss America to tell you about. If you go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK, you can get their Secret War on Cash report completely free. You can also call them at 800-289-2646 and tell them Eric Erickson sent you, or just text my name, Eric, ERICK, to 800-289-2646. You get their report completely free, The Secret War on Cash, an all-out assault on freedom, how the government is using high interest rates, among other things, trying to steer you into credit and debit cards so they can see what you're buying, steer your purchases, de-anonymize it because you're not doing cash. It applies to digital forms of currency. Call them or text my name, Eric, to 800-289-2646, or go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric, SwissAmerica.com/ERICK. Message and data rates may apply.